here we go. Sunday Fun Day.
Sunday Fun Day. And this is going to be a true Sunday Fun Day. I am so excited, Todd.
Well, why are you all excited?
Well, because one of my favorite people is joining us today. It's somebody that I've actually looked up to for a very long time and used to follow around as like a little mini groupie because I loved all of the stuff that he used to, all of the books he used to read. Write.
Okay, so in other words, you treated him a lot like you treated me when you first met me.
No. How did I treat you? I was very kind to you.
Stalker-like. I mean, my God.
I was not a stalker. I was not a stalker.
Hi, Vicky and Dawn. Thanks for tuning in today.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is going to be a lot of fun, though. So, Sunday Fun Day, lots going on. We're gearing up for next Sunday, our season 2, episode 1 of our audio podcast will drop. And I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, and we're going to be, it'll be a little different than it has been in the past because we've got so much content going on these live casts that we're actually going to be able to pull some of that audio and share it on the podcast, and we'll have some fresh stuff on the podcasts. And I mean, it's going to be crazy.
We're just going to mix it up a lot and have some fun with it. And I sort of think of season 1 as our learning experience, our learning curve. We sort of, we were
training wheels.
Training wheels. We were finding our way and getting ourselves geared up for, where we really wanted to be. And I'm telling you, I love these lives. I hope everybody else is enjoying these live episodes, so to speak, because they're so much fun for us. And we get to bring you content that we might not be able to bring you in the audio version and vice versa.
Yep. And Michelle, Victoria, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, ladies.
Prime example today, the guest that we've got on today, Dennis, I'm really looking forward to it because of his experiences in the paranormal realm. And I'm just learning a little bit about some of the books he wrote. And those are also of interest to me. So it'll be very, very cool.
And Dennis literally investigates every single place that he writes about. So he has his own experiences. He doesn't just report the stories that people tell. He actually goes to these places and experiences things for himself, which I think is a very unique and very interesting perspective on haunted locations.
And he has the coolest house in the world. Like every paranormal investigator wants a house like this. I'm so
love
jealous.
His house. Not only for the architectural design and how beautiful, gorgeous it is, but the fact that he lives in his very own haunted house. It doesn't get any better than that.
Can I at least show the picture of the house from the outside?
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you a thought process on it. That's kind of like, look at that. I think that's limestone, right?
It is. It's limestone. Dennis lives in the perfect storm. He lives in a town that is very close to waterfalls and very fast running water. He is on very historic land. American Indians, Native Americans lived on that land. And also it's built of limestone, which is very conducive to energy. So Dennis lives in the perfect storm. When I walked in there, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It's crazy in there, but it's peaceful in there. He'll tell you more about the house, but it's a beautiful, beautiful home.
So we're going to be talking with Dennis coming up in just a little bit. I wanted to kind of start off because I've had an experience this week that I'm really kind of ticked off about. And it has to do with the paranormal world.
Yes.
The investigators. Okay. And the reason I want to bring this up is because I think a lot of times, Ashes, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Ashes.
Sometimes I think like we're our own worst enemies. Okay. Yeah. I understand that we all have thought processes and beliefs on what something is or the equipment and how it works and all that. Some of us are more trained than others. And some of us have deeper beliefs than others. But I really feel like we're our own worst enemies in that we find ways to cut each other down. We find ways to not be friendly and helpful to individuals. And I had an experience this week that really kind of ticked me off. And I'm not going to say who it was with. It was actually with 2 groups of investigators who are big stars on TV. And there is one of the shows that you and I like a lot uses a recorder, a specific audio recorder that they tend to get a lot of evidence on.
Right.
And so my thought was, well, maybe there's something about the way this recorder is made that allows energies to come through easier.
Mm-hmm.
I then saw another TV show where the same unit was used, and they got just crazy amounts of EVPs with it. So I said, okay, well, I got to find out what this is. I want to get my hands on this. It doesn't look like it's, one of those really expensive Zoom models. It looks, well, you know the one I'm talking
basic.
about.
Yeah, it
very
looks
basic.
But we love that they get so much evidence with it. And
Yes.
I would like one for myself. I'd love to know exactly what it is, because unfortunately, a lot of these shows, they don't give you information about what they're using, just the name of what they're using, what it does.
Right.
So, yeah.
So at any rate, I reached out on Twitter to the show that I watched. They had a guest investigator on that used it. So this is not somebody who is actually on the program. It's just somebody who was along. No response, nothing. So then I reached out to the big stars on the show you and I really like, who I have met before, and always kind of thought that they had a little bit of an attitude, but no response. Nobody is willing to just reach out and help a fellow investigator figure out that one piece of equipment that they're using.
And all it takes is a few words.
It would take 3 words. It's this brand, this model, good luck. Boom. That's all I need. I don't want to have a long conversation with you. I am not asking to be a fan. I'm not asking for any of that. All I want is a quick conversation about the equipment you're using, and nobody can respond.
Unfortunately,
because I'm nobody. That's
right.
Why.
And I was telling you too, even when I was doing mornings on the radio, anybody who messaged me received a response. It didn't matter, even on a small scale like that. Anybody who messaged me received a response, even if it was just a few words and thank you for the kind words or whatever. Everyone got a response. And I think that's not only, professional, but it's also just being a kind human being. And
even
having respect.
Even your stalkers got responses.
Even until I realized they were stalkers. Even they got responses. In the beginning, you don't know they're a stalker. But it happens a lot. I've been involved in animal rescue and advocacy for many years. And it does happen in the animal rescue world as well. Instead of everybody. And I would say in my area, generally, we all work together beautifully. Beautifully. Nobody cuts anybody down. But I have seen it across the country, and I don't understand why we can't all just work together. We're all working for the same goal, whether it's animals or it's investigating. We're all working towards the same goal. Nobody's stealing anyone's thunder. We all need to work together. And I think you're right. That's a great point, that why can't they just answer you?
Well, and it's why we have this forum, because we want people who experience the things that we've experienced, or even the stuff we haven't experienced, to have a place to talk about it and feel good about it, right?
Yeah, and we're accessible. If you have a question about equipment, I just bought a Mel meter. I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to get here. And if you have a question about equipment, ask us, or being an empath or anything, ask us.
Something went bump in the night. What could it be?
Yeah. That's what we're here for, a safe haven for people to talk about whatever they want to talk about, paranormal or not, with no judgment. And that's what we're here for.
I think I just came up with your biker name.
Oh.
I think I did. You want a Mel meter? I think it should be Mel. I think I'm going to call you Mel. I like that.
Melly. Yeah. Melly. Smelly. I can say, I can see the wheels turning in your head.
I'm working on it.
Melly.
All right, why don't you bring our guest in?
Let's do it. Dennis Webster is a paranormal investigator, and he's the author of several books. His previous works include Haunted Mohawk Valley, Wicked Adirondacks, Wicked Mohawk Valley, the New York State Lunatic Asylum at Utica, A History of Old Maine, and Adirondack Mysteries. There are so many more. I've got a lot of his books, and before I actually knew Dennis personally, I went to one of his lectures and had him sign one for me. So he's just amazing. He's done a lot of lectures and presentations on both local history and the paranormal. I've brought Dave to many of them over the years. Dennis spent several years with
Dave.
I know.
Poor Dave. Your poor husband, man. I'm telling you.
He has fun. He spent several years with the Ghost Seekers of Central New York before forming the Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society with Dave and I. With the three of us.
Let me pull that up because it's a great picture. Look at that.
Isn't that great?
Look at that.
We shot that on one of the coldest days of the winter. As you can see, we just couldn't wait to get it done. But I love the picture. I have the picture.
Tell you, I have to tell you, I'm not going to lie. I love the picture too. You look like a bunch of morticians. I'm just telling you. Right?
The original plan, and we're still going to be doing it. We're still going to be doing it in a month or so. The original plan was to go to the cemetery. And it was so freaking cold out. We were like, no, let's just do this. And I'm telling you, it was cold that day.
I'll be honest. I would definitely buy a coffin from the guy in the purple tie. No doubt about it. And I'd make all the arrangements with Dave, and you could do my makeup. Okay.
He would love that. So Dennis is also the co-executive producer of Ghost Pubs and Grubs. It's a paranormal investigation show based right here in New York. And it's centered around haunted restaurants. And I'm very happy to work with Dennis on that project as well. We're having a blast with it. We'll talk a little bit about that today, too.
Yes.
Dennis's vast knowledge and experience with the paranormal, including his experience of currently living in his very own haunted house. Don't we all want our own haunted house?
Yes, and then Ashes asked, how much do you charge for embalming? I love it.
We have a special. Buy one, get one half off.
Just during the broadcast today.
Just during, mention Death 10. And we'll...
Yeah.
And this makes him the perfect guest for our podcast. So welcome to Dennis Webster.
Look at this guy right here. Hey, man.
Hi, Dan.
Morning, guys.
How are you?
Good.
So thank you so much for joining us today. This is going to be great. I've been trying to get you on here forever, trying to figure out what the best way to do this would be. And I've actually interviewed you a few times before for radio and for an older podcast that I used to do. And we had so much fun with it. I thought Dennis is the perfect guest. So welcome and thank you so much again.
Thank you.
So, Dennis, tell us, first of all, before anything else, why do you have such an interest in the paranormal? Is it something you grew up with?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm one of 7 children, but I'm the odd one, if that makes sense. For some reason, my entire life, I've always had an allure of monster movies, and I loved cemeteries. Even as a young child, I would ride my bike and sit and read in cemeteries, and I don't know why. So fascination with it.
Do you have abilities yourself, or have you ever had, did you have experiences as a child, anything growing up that sort of set the tone?
Actually, no. I guess I got into the ghost hunting quite on accident. I went to a lecture, and I've learned to get better at what I do, but I don't have gifts like you do, Sandy. But I think I've learned to identify things better for many years of doing this. Sort of
gut feelings.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of yoga nidra, which is a type of meditation. That's helped me a lot. I think that's helped me open up a lot more to be able to experience things.
You had a chance to work with him a little bit, Sandy. Do you feel like he's one of the individuals who has kind of opened up to, obviously had beliefs in it, had interest in it, but kind of started opening up? Because I sense there's an energy there that actually does attract other spirits' energies to kind of come through and show themselves to him.
Yeah, without a doubt. Dennis has so much experience, and working with Dennis is really great because Dennis sort of becomes the investigation, if that makes sense. Dennis puts himself into the investigation. Dennis is always going around making sure that everything is where it needs to be, that everything is going by how he feels that it should be. I love that about you, Dennis, because you are the ultimate professional, but you have sort of that compassionate side where you know what the best thing to do in a certain situation is. It's sort of like that gut feeling that you get, and it makes for a great investigation. And it's calming too. It keeps everybody calm. We don't usually run out screaming, run, ghost run, that kind of thing. So it keeps everybody calm. And we've had some crazy experiences that I think some people might run out, screaming otherwise,
Well, how many people can say they've been rubbed up against by a succubus? I have.
I'm so jealous.
I was telling Todd, tell us that story really quick. I love that story.
Oh my God. So we were doing an investigation of the Braylock in Cazenovia. It's a haunted Scottish bed and breakfast. It's an amazing place. And the ghost group I used to belong to, wonderful group, Ghost Seekers of Central New York, Bernadette Peck. She's in her 70s. She's been doing this since the 1970s. Well, we do seances, which some people like and don't. So we were doing a seance in the dungeon area, and there was a female entity walking around the table, and she decided to lean against me, and I could feel her breathing on the back of my neck, leaning against me, and she rubbed her hands down my arms. And I had Bernadette on one side of me and another investigator here holding hands, and they said I started rattling. I was like shaking.
Oh my gosh. And what do you do when that happens? Like,
was it as good for you as it was for the ghost? I just got to ask.
Well, I got to say, Todd, at this particular moment, I am a single man, and I'll take any girlfriend. A ghost girlfriend, I'm in there.
As long as she gets along with the ghost family you've got going on in the house.
If you find a girl that makes you shudder, you got to take her. I mean, that's just a rule.
Hey, brother, I was like, hey, this is good.
And I will say, too, that because I watched that episode of your show at the Braylock, I've stayed in that haunted room 12 twice now and gotten some crazy stuff in there. It is truly a haunted place. And anybody from Central New York, if you are looking for a really nice place to stay, go. It's like room 11, I believe also. Isn't it, Dennis?
Yeah,
11 and 12?
11, 12, 13 are in the main old building. The rest was built off of it. But it's a cool place. Like a lot of the windows in that place, they got from a Scottish church that was in Scotland. We repurposed them in the building.
That's awesome. I want to. You mentioned the seance, and you kind of mentioned some people are into it, some people are not. What is it about a seance that you feel lends itself to a paranormal investigation?
I think when you are with when you have good karma amongst yourselves, and then you link your hands, it's very hard to describe. But the energy, it's like you can feel like that energy around that circle, and it's almost like everybody's linking their spirits together to put more energy out, maybe open a bigger portal. Anytime I've done one with the right people, they tend to yield great results.
Are you ever afraid of that, that paranormal energy, that spirit, whatever it could be, running through you and not being able to shake it, not being able to get rid of it? Does that ever come to mind while you're doing a seance?
No, but the only time that I ever witnessed in person something that was pretty scary was actually, Sandy knows this, at the Russia Church, which we're going to be investigating soon. We had an investigator who passed away. Her name was Helen, wonderful lady. She actually had a spirit come into her, and she was talking in two different voices. It was rather creepy and unsettling. I got to admit, it freaked us all out. And she was so scared. She goes, "You'll never catch me ever back in that place."
From what I can tell, there's a lot of strong energy in there. And I always go into an investigation not wanting to know much. And so far, that's worked for me. I tend to find things out as I go along, or I'll do a walkthrough first. And then I'll say, okay, here's how I feel. Give me the information you have so we can put it together and investigate it as well as we can. But I feel like that place has got some crazy energy in it. It's going to be interesting to get in there. It's one of my bucket list items, definitely. So,
hey, I just want to mention too, people who are watching and listening in, if you've got a question for Dennis today about investigating, or later on about his books, once we kind of get into that, feel free to post them, and we'll see if he can answer some of your questions today.
Dennis, what are the 5 senses of haunting?
Well, when people think about being haunted or experience the paranormal and ghosts, they always think about that iconic person in a white sheet kind of look, or or the perfect EP. But we know as investigators that your 5 senses always come into play. Like, you'll hear stuff and see stuff, but a lot of times people don't realize you can also have like a paranormal scent. Like, all of a sudden you smell apple pipe tobacco, or you smell a certain kind of perfume or a soap. And that happens quite frequently. And people will say, "Oh my God, that was the smell of the perfume that my mother wore, who's passed on now."
When we were in the Rucker Mansion, do you remember we were standing in the room that we believe that Roscoe Conkling passed away in, the room where I got the shadow figure, and we smelled formaldehyde.
Yeah, and it just came out of nowhere. And that's when you talk about the different senses.
Yep.
That's what the 5 senses of the paranormal are. You can smell things, or even the goosebumps on your arms going up, when you feel something brush against you.
You mentioned the Rutger Mansion. I that picture is so amazing. I'd like to throw it up real quick if that's okay with you, Sandy.
Yeah.
Tell us the background on that.
This was crazy. I was at the Rutger Mansion in Utica is very historic. Roscoe Conkling, and Dennis can fill you in a little more on the history of it. Roscoe Conkling and his family lived there in the 1800s, and he was a very well-known politician. And they bought it about maybe 12, 13 years ago, the Landmark Society of Utica, and they're restoring it. They're still in the process of restoring it. And it's very hard to get in there, to be honest with you, especially on the scope that we actually got to investigate it the way we did. We had full access of it. But about a year before that, I had gone to a private dinner party there, and they let us have the run of the first 2 floors, and it was about 6:30 at night. So it was August, so it was still very light out. And I was just wandering through the rooms, taking pictures, not in a paranormal way, just taking some pictures. And because I love old things. I love old houses. And I got home that night and had taken a set of 3 pictures in a row. So what I did was kept my feet in the same place, but I pivoted around the room and took 3 pictures. And the first picture was absolutely fine. This was the second picture. The third picture was absolutely fine. There was nobody else in the room with me at the time. And it was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night when I saw this picture. And I wanted so bad to message Dennis, but I didn't want to wake him up if he was sleeping, because I had no idea what I had caught. And if you look carefully, you can see what looks to be the outline of a man in possibly a stovepipe hat in period clothing that we believe could be Roscoe Conkling himself. So he felt comfortable enough with me to show himself to me. I couldn't see him with my eyes at the time, only with the film in my cell phone camera.
Yeah, the important thing also to keep in mind is that's a daytime picture. So people always think, oh, you have to ghost hunt at night and paranormal activity happens only in the dark. Nope, this is middle. Look, it's sunny outside.
Yeah. And I studied that picture, and Dennis actually took that picture to his ghost seekers friends, and everybody was looking at it, and we analyzed it. I spent hours trying to analyze that picture to see if it was some sort of, maybe the motion, but the figure itself is very static. The rest of the room is blurred, but the figure itself is very static. There's no blur in the figure, which makes it even more compelling. So I really believe that I got probably one of the best pictures of a shadow figure that I've seen to date. So all by accident, wasn't even looking for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's sometimes when the best evidence happens, when you're not out there searching for it, but you're open to it. And I think, we talk a lot about people that have stuff happen in their house once they start remodeling and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean necessarily that it wasn't there. You just maybe you just didn't realize it. Or like most humans, you come up with a reason to kind of brush it off. Well, that's just the wind, or that was just a car going by, or whatever. A lot of times it is the wind. A lot of times it is a car going by, but sometimes it's something very different.
It's healthy to try to debunk every bit of evidence that you get, and make sure that there's not other explanations for it before you say, oh, this is paranormal. And then there's other times when you just can't deny it. I saw things at the Angry Garlic investigation. I experienced things that I had never experienced before. And it's very difficult to debunk something that you're right in the middle of, that you're experiencing. Dennis, we saw the black mist or form.
And then she went and walked into it, which was really interesting.
Well, I have a respect. I'm not afraid, but I do have a respect for it. And I didn't feel like it was something that would harm me. I felt like it was very residual. I didn't feel like there was any real intelligence to it at the time. I think what that represented was probably a lot of the very heavy residual. Oh no, the phone's ringing.
Let me just get that real quick. Hello? Uh-huh. Yeah, I'll let her know. All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. I'm supposed to tell you never to walk in a black mist again?
Okay,
just to remind you not to do that. Okay.
Thanks.
Right.
Great advice. Thank you.
But the interesting thing was what happened, Dennis. I disappeared in it, which was crazy. That was crazy. And I was fine. I wasn't affected by it at all. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. I probably won't walk into any more black mists, but
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But Dennis, let me ask you this question. Now, Bill and Michelle and I all witnessed an apparition at the bottom of the stairs, and it appeared to us to be white. Is there a reason why you think, in your opinion, a lot of the apparitions that people see tend to be white? We always hear of the lady in the white dress, or, it was a white figure. Do you know why that might be? Why they're not wearing, cream or yellow or red?
Yeah, great question. My theory, it's just a theory, is like our spiritual energy. If you think back when you see things like ectoplasm and mist, it's energy can be transferred, it can't be destroyed. So that's the theory why, spirits exist and we live forever outside of these carbon husks that we live in. And perhaps that's why throughout the ages, when people talk about ghosts or angels or whatever, they always have them in white or that glow or white. My theory is that our spirit is that light energy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I agree with that. I have always wondered that question. You don't see a lot of apparitions, or people don't claim to see apparitions of, other. It is, and I always wondered if maybe that's the energy, that's the way they can present themselves to us in that form, in that appearance, in that way. So very interesting. What's your favorite investigation that you ever did?
Oh gosh, there's so
I know
many.
You've done a million. I know.
Well, I could give you my favorite moment of when I realized that this stuff is real. Because remember, I was a writer. I did mystery books and true crime before I got into ghost hunting. I just went along, and then I started discovering it. And at the time, we did an investigation at a house in the Adirondack Mountains, and we captured an EVP. Out behind the house was a woodshed. And the owner had said that was her grandfather's sacred space. The kids weren't allowed to go out there. He did all sorts of work out there, woodwork, whatever. And he had passed away of a heart attack in that building a decade earlier. So we're doing a walkthrough. And at the time, we had the medium Irene with us. I don't know if you know Irene.
I don't.
She's a pretty gifted lady, just like yourself. But anyway, we heard something, and we're like, well, I think we captured something. When we listened back later and we played it, it was a voice of an old man saying, "What are you doing here?" And then the kicker was when we played it for the family and they burst out in tears, it was the voice of their deceased grandfather.
Wow.
So that was an intelligent haunt, verified it was the voice of their grandfather in the place that he passed away. And that's when I went, wow.
Sort of your aha moment. Yeah.
Yep, my epiphany, my eureka moment.
I found that I have a lot of those. Like each time,
this is the real deal.
Yeah, each time you experience something new that you've never experienced before, it sort of becomes your aha moment. I always had heard the idea that a haunting could be, with the same spirit, could be both residual and intelligent. And until we were at your house and we were on the stairs, I never had experienced both of those at the same time. And the lady who I kept picturing on the stairs, who I kept feeling on the stairs when we were sitting there, I realized at that moment that she's both residual, but yet she's intelligent. I could feel her. Like, we asked her to literally come down the stairs, come towards us. And Dennis, you could feel her on your back. And then the equipment started to go off, and I could feel her in front of me, and the equipment continued to go off, and then she went down the stairs. There was an intelligence there, and there was a residual to her. And it was just one of my aha moments to realize that, wow, this concept is crazy, but you can have both at the same time of the same person. It's just great. Yeah.
Yeah, so, just Mary, I've twice now. I've woken up in the middle of the night. She's standing in the corner of the bedroom there.
And what do you see? What do you see?
I could see an outline of a female figure. I can't make her out too much because it's dark, but I could tell it's a woman, and she's standing in that one corner near where you were sitting, right over there by the fireplace.
Isn't that something?
Looking at me.
Now your bedroom, Dennis, is extremely heavy with energy. There's a lot that goes on in that bedroom, and I don't mean it that way. And I don't know. I don't want to go in that direction.
With my ghost girlfriend.
With your ghost girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's very heavy in there. That's great. And you also have a piece of your great grandmother's, something that belonged to your great grandmother, the rocking chair. Mm-hmm. And I actually picked up energy there. I think she's actually with you there as well. I can feel I can feel a lot of energy around that rocking chair. And so I feel like she's probably to some extent attached to that chair. How does that make somebody feel to know that, something that belonged to a member of your family is actually, they're there with you, or their energy is there with you?
Yeah, my theory is that spirits attach themselves to certain items or artifacts that they really had a fondness for, an affection for, or it's really important to them that it's passed along to others. That's why, sometimes you go into these old museums and stuff, and they repurp and find these antiques all over the place. So you don't really know, are the spirits attached to those items that were donated or thrown in there, or are they with the building, or both?
Right.
Well, and I think too, that energy could be attached to it, but my theory or thought process is that our energy can splatter. So you could be with that item, but you could also be doing something else and someplace else and with another item and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to ask you about personal experiences and what place they have in investigation. And the reason why I wanted to ask you is because Sandy and I have had this conversation many times. Early on in paranormal investigation, it was so important to have the lights blink and the sounds go off and the camera evidence and the audio evidence and all that. And I understand that. That's kind of the scientific part of it. You want that to back up those personal experiences. But I also thought for a while we threw out the personal experiences because we couldn't show it on a TV show, or we couldn't show it on video, or we couldn't show... it was a personal experience. And I think that is such a very important, to me, it's a very important part of an investigation. I wanted to get your thoughts on that personal experience side.
Well, thank you for the question, Todd. I totally agree. I think personal experiences are foremost and the most important thing on any investigation, on anything we do. When you talk to people, when you go into their haunted houses, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, but it's hard because you can't always validate it. You feel an entity rub against you. You can smell them. It's hard to put in words, but we all experience it when we ghost hunt. And I agree, things shouldn't be put into a box that if the light doesn't blink, that it didn't happen. We can't show it on TV. Why are they afraid to put that on a television show? Everyone can relate to personal experiences. Everybody, I bet, can look back in their lives and have had a haunted moment or a ghost interaction. Especially, a lot of times, number one thing we hear as investigators is people who get visited by a beloved loved one who passes away. They'll come to them one last time before they move on or whatnot. We hear that all the time. I've heard it from hundreds of people in my career doing this. And why throw that kind of part out of it? I think it's the most important part.
I do too. And I also think when you don't recognize it or state that this is what happened, I think it's almost a disservice to the energy or the spirit there, because it disregards the fact that they did make some sort of contact with you. And, one of my aha moments was at an investigation. We spent all night trying to get them to light the lights and talk through the spirit box and, turn on the flashlight. We did that all night long. And when I finally said, okay, we really feel you're here, do something that you can do to show us you're here, whatever that is, something you can do all the time. And I said, do it for us now. And right then at that moment, something that was part of the story that we were told about what happened at that location finally happened at that exact moment. To me, the energy or the spirit there wasn't necessarily able to communicate through all the various devices of equipment that we had, but was able to do this one thing that it does and does all the time. And it's like, it was an aha moment, because it's like,
Cool.
I can't speak Chinese to you right now. If you ask me to, I can't do that. The only way I can communicate through language is speaking English. So in the same respect, spirits and energy have ways that they've learned to communicate themselves. And I think we have to learn to respect that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, Todd. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And what makes a great investigation? But it's the melding of the two. To me, an investigation with only beeps and buzzes and things like that is fine. But when you add corroborating experiences to that, it makes for a well-rounded investigation. It gives you a better glimpse into what is going on. The whole point is trying to understand what is going on. You know, an example would be at the Angry Garlic, Dennis, when we were at the bar and I came up with the name. And as soon as I said the name, and I could feel this female energy right next to me. And as soon as I said the name, all of the equipment went crazy.
Yeah.
And so now you've got personal experiences and you've got scientific equipment coming together and working together to give you one picture. It doesn't get any better than that. I wouldn't want to go into an investigation without both, because I don't think you get the whole picture.
Yeah, and what I think is difficult with these television shows, and I mean, Sandy and I do a very small, local type of TV show, the haunted restaurant one, but I can't imagine trying to do an investigation with a professional production team there on you, and then that costs a lot of money, and then you're under pressure to produce.
Yeah.
And hey, and I'm not saying people fake stuff they don't. I don't think they do, but it's a lot of pressure, and I think that affects the karma. Because Sandy and I talked about this, Todd, that we get such great evidence when we do this, but we don't have all these camera people and other people and everything else. It's just the people that are believers, the people that have the good karma, and it brings it out. But I definitely think that these shows, there's so many of them, they're trying to up their gamesmanship, And
well, and in their defense, and I know you're not putting them down, in their defense, that's what the networks want. So if you want to have a show and you want to make some money doing this and have some fun, I guess you have to.
And their entertainment.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's their main goal, is to entertain people. So if they get a little blip on the Melmeter or the EDI or something, it turns into this huge event, even though it may not really be. It's all entertainment. My fear is that a lot of people think that what they see on the TV shows is necessarily what goes on in real life, because in real life, it's really not it's really not like the TV shows. Not really.
That's a good point, Sandy.
Yeah. It's exciting, but it's not the same as a TV show. It's more personal.
Yeah, and I would say the one thing is that the one thing that people get wrong is, very rare do you run into a malevolent spirit or a dark energy. Most of it is, I love this theory is the ghosts have the personalities like they have when they're alive.
Yeah.
And we've run into them. We run into curious ghosts, shy, grumpy,
I'm going to be an asshole. I'm going to be an asshole. I'm just telling you right now. Watch out.
You're going to be the asshole ghost?
I'm going to be the asshole. And just so you know, my death word, the one that I will say to you over the spirit box, just so you know it's me, is pumpernickel. So if you get pumpernickel over a spirit box, you know it's me.
You know what, Todd? All we're going to see, Sandy, is his beard. He's got that legendary, beautiful beard. So that's all we're going to get. We won't get a ghost, but we'll get a floating beard.
We'll get a beard.
I may not have had a succubus, but I've got a beard. So you got to have one or the other.
It's legendary, brother.
I've got a serious question, and this is something that I love to ask people. Sometimes I ask them on the street, and they're like, "What?" And here's the question: you're going into an investigation. You've got a night vision camera. You've got a flashlight, which you can use as a tool or just for vision, and you've got an audio recorder. Now, you can pick two more pieces of equipment to go with you. Which two do you pick on an investigation?
Great question.
Oh, for me?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely would bring a Melmeter because I love them because it's got the electromagnetism and it's got the temperature on it. Definitely that. And probably a Gauss, a handheld Gauss. I really don't think you need anything more than those hand basics, really. If I had just a night vision video camera and a digital recorder, I think that's all you need. And maybe
I think the other stuff is fun. It's fun. We have the REM pod. I just bought a REM pod, so we used it at your house, Dennis. I mean, that was a lot of fun. And it certainly did go off when we asked it to. But I think the basics are really, the most important things, to have the basics. There's a lot of fun stuff out there, but I just bought a Melmeter, Den, because I was so excited. I really want a Melmeter, so I just bought one. But yeah, I think that you're right. I think that the basics are the way to go on a lot of these. Dennis, you sent me some great pictures, so I want to get those in before we start talking about the books. Todd, can you bring up the Stanley?
The Stanley. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Check this one out. I'll just say this really quick. I looked at this and went, I don't see a damn thing in this picture. And then I popped it up today and I looked at it and went, holy shit.
Yeah.
So,
Dennis, tell us about this one and your investigation.
Well, what had happened is, even though I say I'm not gifted, the night before this investigation, I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a little girl. And I asked her, she told me her name was Mary. And then I went to talk to her again, and she ducked under a table and disappeared. So when I told Bernadette Peck who we went with the Ghost Seekers, she says, Dennis, she goes, we may run into a little girl here. And I have investigated that place 3 times prior and never had a child entity there at all. And we were down in the basement of the Stanley, the women's room. And when this picture was taken, it was pitch dark, couldn't see a foot in front of you. And we could actually picked up the EVP of a little girl, like, crying. You could hear, like, whimpering. And we asked at the time, why don't you come a little closer and show us your dress, or show us, and she said no. Got that all on recording. And then we snapped one picture, and it was this. So
it's unbelievable. And do you have any information, backstory or anything on this little girl, or was this all just as it happened?
As it happened. I have absolutely nothing. None of the staff there have ever experienced a child entity. It's always maintenance workers or grown adults. And like I said, in 3 investigations prior, nothing to do with any children whatsoever. So I have no idea where Mary came from, why she came to me in a dream. She showed up for this picture, and it's an amazing photo.
Oh, it's spectacular. It's one of the best that I've seen, honestly. I mean, you can see right down to the puff sleeves, the long sleeves with the puff at the top. I mean, it's fantastic. So congratulations on that one. That's a winner in my opinion. Now, the Stanley is a great place to investigate. I've never investigated there myself, but I've been there a million times. And there are tunnels underneath the Stanley. A lot of people have said that they've been down there and they've heard what sounds like parties going on, people talking. Were you able to get down into the tunnels?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty unique. I think part of it is there's water flowing underneath there. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, part of it. But yeah, the tunnels are really unique. And I don't know why it's so haunted. Maybe it's the land it's on. Built in the 1920s. I mean, it's Baroque Mexican decor. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous.
We've done a couple of theaters myself, and one of them, and what is it with water in theaters? But one of the theaters that had just a ton of water that ran underneath it, again, was very haunted, and almost got the feeling in that location with what we were experiencing was that it was almost like a portal, or like a bus station or a train station where spirits or energies came and went. It wasn't necessarily something that was stuck there, but things that would come through and come through another time or whatever. That's kind of the thought process I had on that. And that's why I wanted to ask you about portals and kind of traveling and all that kind of stuff. Do you believe there might be locations that are portals where energies and spirits can kind of come and go?
I absolutely believe in that. Yeah, I think, like in your theory earlier, which I've never heard about them being like scattered like that terminology you used. I think that's a great theory. And yeah, I definitely have been on investigations with some mediums in the past and others where it's like we did an old haunted house, and there was a closet, and it was like that closet, the energy was flowing in and out of it. And our theory is they use portals to travel back and forth between locations. Like when people say, like, how can Grace Brown, who was murdered by Chester Gillette up in this area, how can her spirit be at her childhood home in South Oswald, but also be hanging above the lake over where she was murdered?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that they can move from place to place. I feel like, and there are some of them I think that maybe choose to be bound to a certain place. Maybe the sadness, or the joy that they experience there sort of keeps them bound there. Their fear may keep them bound there. But I think generally speaking, they do have the free will to move from place to place. I hear some people who say, oh, well, how can you experience Grace Brown at her childhood home and then experience her up at the lake and where she passed away? But I agree. I think it's highly possible. My best friend Karen lived in a 100-year-old house, and they decided when the kids were born, they decided to do some renovating. And when they started renovating, all hell broke loose in that house. There were all kinds of, Karen would hear whispers in her ear. The kids, who were very little at the time, would talk to imaginary people, or quote imaginary people. They would claim to see somebody at the end of the hallway. All of this stuff kicked up, and I really feel like there was a portal in or very close to their property, because they were just coming and going, and it was never the same experiences or the same energies. She said it was always something different. So I really believe, I agree with you. I think that they use that the intelligent spirits really use that to be able to move from place to place. I know that I have several different places that would make me happy to be at. Why would I stay in one place if I had the ability to be able to
just want to spend all your time with me? That's what it is. I'm gonna
haunt you. I'm gonna haunt you. Believe it.
My phone will be ringing all the time. It's gonna be her on the other end.
So Dennis, the Southern Adirondack General Store.
Oh my goodness!
I showed Todd this picture, and he just said, "Wow."
Yep.
Tell us about that investigation.
That was wild. This was the last one I investigated for my book, Haunted Adirondacks, which will be out this fall. And the owner said, we think we got a good picture. And this particular store used to have 2 stories. The second story was taken off. It was a stagecoach stop, and it was also a brothel. And so there was several tragic deaths, including a young child got shot and killed out in front like 100 years ago. So the owners, and the weird thing is they took this picture. This picture is rather old. It was actually developed from film. So I took this off of their printed picture with my camera. So it's even better when you see it in person. But the cool thing about this is you can see through this gentleman, but where the window is doesn't exist right now.
Right.
They have old pictures of the store where those windows have been removed, and it's a solid wall now. So
That's
it's a reason. So when they took the picture, like in the 60s, they said that door and window was removed, and this picture is like from 10 years ago.
That's wild.
So what does everybody see here? Because I that whole like pilgrim-ish kind of look to it with the, that's
almost
what I
like an
see.
Overcoat of some sort, like a heavy overcoat type of thing on a hood, or I'm not. It's fascinating. Dennis, did you get anything corroborating a man when you guys were investigating?
Interestingly enough, we got some good EVPs and stuff. We didn't get a man's name, but it was rather strong in the back room, not in the front where that picture was taken. But the odd experience at that place was the land out behind the building, because the owners had said that they had some weird experiences out behind it. So we did a little EVP session in the woods, which, it's difficult to do outdoor type stuff.
Yep.
But got some very strange fog and some mist that came out of nowhere, and some really odd EVPs. But we did not pick up a name, so I still don't know what the name of that gentleman is.
And I've asked this question to other investigators before too. What's your take on using mediums and psychics on an investigation?
Oh gosh. You know what I mean? I've been around a lot in my career, and I think that they run the gambit of being charlatans to the real deal, to some that have a slight ability, to some that are like mind-blowingly incredible. And I don't think people go out of their way to try to be a charlatan or a fake. I just think they so badly want to have gifts, but you got to be able to back it up, I guess. It's hard to really explain, but I guess it's like anything else. Like with baseball, you could be a terrible baseball player like me, or you could be Derek Jeter. So are you the Derek Jeter of mediums?
Right. It's hard. I mean, I look at some of these mediums and I'm like, holy cow, these people are spot on and they are so specific. And then I think, okay, well, I have some stuff, you know what I mean? I'm still developing. I'm still learning. I've been told a couple of times that I actually have abilities that I haven't developed at all yet. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. But I've always felt like a true medium can add so much to an investigation, because that's where your personal experiences really come in. You know, being able to feel I think my strong point is being able to feel the energies. I can feel male or female. I can feel when they're right by us. I can actually converse with them because I'm picking up on their emotions and their feelings. We were in the investigation at Sylvan Beach, and I literally had a conversation with the doctor's wife, and I could feel her feelings there. You know, I think that's what my strong point is, being able to tell. But then there are people who can see them, and I'm just blown away by some of that. But you're right. There are some people that I think want so badly to be that part of an investigation that maybe they push themselves a little more than they should. And I think that's when it really hurts an investigation, because you're not coming up with anything solid.
Well, I would tell any medium or any, don't feel you always have to be on, because we could do one, Sandy, and you could have nothing. You could do another one, and then you're clicking.
Exactly.
There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Exactly.
So don't feel you got to fill in the gaps or you got to perform because I'm the medium. I got to do something.
It's funny because so far, knock on wood, so far I've had really good, I don't want to call it luck, but I've had really good experiences with it. But I know that there's going to be a time when I'm just going to go in there and just be like, I got nothing. But that's where I feel like I can lend my skills as an investigator as well. I like to go into the investigations as both. I want to be a solid investigator, but I also want to take the feelings and the emotions and the names per se that come to me and use them to get the whole picture.
And I think too, that goes with equipment. Sometimes that Mel meter is going to be your greatest gift at an investigation. And another time everything else is working and nothing's happening there. Same with mediumship and things of that nature. I want to talk about the TV show too, because it's good.
He loves our show. He loves our show, Ghost Pubs and Grub. How did you come up with this brainchild? I'm so excited to be on this project with you, Dennis. Well, how did you come up with this?
Because he likes food and he likes ghosts. Come on, I mean.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, when I saw Bill doing his Empire Plate episodes, I got thinking, part of it was talking to a friend of mine who was from China, and he was talking about in China, I believe it's the Mandarin language, they use the phrase "gui," which means ghosts or spirits or ancestors, and they leave food out for the ancestors, so like an offering, a sacrifice, or what have you. So there's always that. I got thinking a lot about the connection between food. It's such an earthly pleasure that you don't get to experience in the afterlife. People will always ask me, well, can I smoke a cigarette and eat a barbecue sandwich in the afterlife? Probably not. but it's another thing that for some reason I felt it attracts ghosts. Why so many haunted pubs and restaurants? And I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of, when you look at places like New Orleans, when they have the food and the whole voodoo there, and different cultures, Day of the Dead celebrations and things like that. So I just thought it would be kind of fun to do like a cooking segment and then go into the investigation. So it's kind of like putting peanut butter and chocolate together.
Right,
Great
exactly.
taste together.
It's fun. It's fun. It really. Plus
you got my ghost in your food. You got your food in my ghost.
But we get such good food too, so that's a lot of fun, and it's great. I know, right? But it's fun to highlight local too. It's fun to highlight local and bring attention to some of this stuff. I know some of the places that we've done were very well known for being haunted, but then there were some that weren't really well known for being haunted. And it's nice to spotlight both their food and the activity that's going on there.
And I think a lot of people, some of these restaurants and pubs and things like that have been restaurants and pubs for many, 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 many years. Mm-hmm. And people who are in that business put their heart and soul into that business. Yeah. And so listen, if your energy is going to be left behind someplace, that is probably one of the places that you'll find some of your, remains, basically.
The Angry Garlic, I think that one of the reasons why some of the spirits upstairs in the bar and dining area are there is because they pay homage to them. They have pictures of the way it looked in those days. And it's a happy, fun atmosphere, good food, good drink, good energy. People come and have a good time. And I think that you're right, Dennis. I think it draws them to that kind of atmosphere. And it's just a fun. Dennis, what's something, since doing the show, what's something that you've kind of learned or realized, any kind of lessons? I know for me, I've sort of learned that you don't have to do 8 and 10 hour investigations to get some pretty amazing evidence. You can get it done in about 2 hours. And if you're doing it right, I think you can get a lot of evidence in a short amount of time.
I think the big thing I learned was, because remember, Bill and Ryan and Laf, they're novices. They're not seasoned ghost hunters or anything. And they walked in and just had fun with it. And they're naturally excellent at it. Yeah. And the point being is there's not a special school for what we do. I think it's having a natural curiosity, having good karma, and Bill and Ryan had a lot of stuff happen and they had never ghost hunted before. Sure.
It's going in with a good attitude about it. I'm a skeptic. I always have to say, oh, well, I'm not going to call it paranormal until I've ruled every other situation that I can think of out. And you can be a skeptic, but go in with the right attitude. Be open to experiencing things.
Sorry, I'm laughing because season 1, I still remember the moment that finally Bill realized that ghosts are real. Up to this, you know what I'm going to talk about. We did the Stiefvater in Utica, haunted restaurant. And Bill, it was like the 3rd episode. Up to that point, it's all funny, laughing, haha, this is cool. And he's sitting in a chair, and Michelle says, "Hey, if you're here, push Bill, Bill." And Bill got pushed in the shoulder. On camera, he swore and jumped up and sprinted out of the room. And he was like going like this, holy shit, oh my God, right?
It's like, dude, run. Yeah.
I could not. I watched it.
We actually make fun of Bill to that day, to this day, because it's an experience. It's when you go into it open. But that's true. That's great. That's a great example of. And then there was, I think, Bill with the closet. Bill is our comic relief. We're always saying, push Bill. He's the one who always gets it. But there was the episode at the Braylock where Bill was very nervous about going near the closet because there were noises coming out of the closet. So he's sort of our comic relief in the whole thing. But he's a great sport and he's had a lot of experiences. For some reason, Bill tends to see shadow people a lot. I
think Bill is such a wonderful human being. He's got a great soul and a great spirit. And I think that I can't see his aura, his color, but he obviously has something that the spirits really like, and I think it's that wonderful, gentle spirit of his. He's just a nice, genuine, good human being.
And I think too, when you're investigating, it's not, it is your energy. But those are like the seance situation. Whoever you're investigating with, that whole group, that energy is what makes things happen. So if you've got someone who, is a medium and has that ability, and you've got somebody who in life is a gentle person and kind and loving, I mean, I think all of that plays into the kind of experience you're going to have when you're out there investigating.
Without a doubt. Totally agree. Dennis, do you believe that the spirits can tell when there's someone open in their midst that they might have an easier time communicating with? Do you think that they can do that? I ask you because of the EVP we got at the Garlic when Bill asked me where we should start the investigation, and I told him the dining room, and we got the EVP that said she's coming. So I'm curious as to what you think. Do they gravitate towards people that they feel are more open?
I definitely think so. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's why I think so many, children tend to see spirits, then as we become skeptical adults, that gift, we either hide it, put it in a drawer, lock it away, or it disappears. But children are innocent and they're open, so they see things.
It's true. I think a great example of that would be almost the argument for reincarnation, because children who have reincarnation stories tend to be younger children. And as they get older, the stories tend to fade a little bit and sometimes go away completely. But the younger they are, the more, and closer to, I guess, the veil that they are, the more they seem to remember and be able to connect those two worlds, I guess, subconsciously. So it's a great point.
I want to talk about Dennis's house in a bit, but because I want to talk about the investigation, we'll show some of the evidence that you guys kind of caught. I'd love to talk about some of his books. Because, I mean, there's a couple of different categories that he falls into, and I think we should really start talking about that. Because if you want to read some good stuff, I mean, he's got a bunch of stuff out there that you can actually read and get into.
I actually have a bunch of them, Dennis. I sent him a picture not too long ago. I think it was the Utica, the asylum in Utica, Old Main book, and you had signed it for me years ago before we even knew each other. I used to drag Dave to all your lectures. I say drag, but he used to love going. But I used to bring Dave to all your lectures, and you signed it for me years ago. What a great book it is. Tell us a little bit about your books and why you decided you wanted to do, true crime and paranormal books.
I think to be a published author or put so much time and effort into something like a book, it has to be something that you're really interested in, that you really love.
Yeah.
And I love the paranormal. I love true crime. I have like an obsession with like watching serial killer type stuff, like the documentaries. That's why, like right now, the book I'm working on now is one about a serial killer. So that'll be my first.
Great to know.
But I don't know. There's something about that allures me about picking up that rock and looking at those little creepy crawly things underneath. And that's what the dark side of the human experience is, the paranormal crime, that kind of thing, just drawn to it.
You actually, I was telling Todd, you actually investigate most of the places in your books.
Yes, like every book I've written, everyone I've walked through and investigated. Yeah, I just think that it's hard when you talk to people, because I will put people's experiences in there. Like I go into a place, like let's say an Old Forge hardware store, and they tell me their stories and their experiences, and you talk to the staff. But then when you investigate it, that just adds a couple extra layers that you go in, and maybe you're validating some of the stories, or maybe you're adding on to it. But it's just a different way to do it. It makes
for a great book, because that way I think it takes the legends and the lore that's associated with a location, but then you have your own personal experiences to add, and it just makes it even more personal to read about. And that's one of the reasons I love your books, because you don't see that all the time. Not many authors actually go in there and investigate all of those locations.
Well, that's why it takes me 2 years to do a book. Seriously, it's a lot of extra work and a lot of time and effort to go into it. But it's pushing the easy button just to interview people and write that down, which is nice.
Yeah.
I read lots of books like that, and I like them. It just my approach is just a little different. It just takes a little bit longer to do it that way.
Do you have a favorite book that you've written?
There you go.
Definitely the Old Main book, and I'll tell you why. Because My mother was worked in the psychiatric industry as a nurse, and my mom's passed away, but she was a wonderful soul and a sweet human being, and she dedicated her life to helping people with mental illness. And I was just fascinated by that place. It's incredible. It was the first of its kind in the United States in that it opened in 1843 that used what was called moral treatment. So that I'm just fascinated by that, because up to that point, it was all about lunacy, like you were cursed by the moon, or you're possessed by the devil. It was the first time they called it the cult of curability, where science started coming into, analysis and things like phrenology. I can't even say that word, but the areas of the brain that at the time they thought had different emotions.
Right.
Well, probably that book, only because of my mother.
I actually had an experience in there. I've told you about that. It's always been shrouded in such mystery. From the time I was a child, I'd see it. You can see it from Route 12 from the arterial. You could always see it up on like the little hill, and just a gorgeous, huge, hulking piece of architecture. And we finally got in there one time. They were giving tours of just certain areas, but it's always been shrouded in kind of mystery and stories. The Utica crib was invented there. There are stories of chains and shackles in the basement. I've never been in the basement. I don't know what goes on down there. There's tunnels. It's a whole campus, really. And did you find anything out while writing that book that sort of surprised you?
Yes, I would say absolutely the big surprise to me, because I read back then all the journals and things at the time. And it's easy for us in our modern day and age to say things like the Utica crib is a medieval torture device. And can you believe they put people in that? And wow, I can't believe they lobotomized people and they gave them shock treatment. Well, when you read at the time, they were trying to put their best. That was the best that they knew at the time to help people. They wanted to help people. So they didn't just say, I'm going to torture your ass and throw you in this Utica crib.
Right.
No, science advances, like think about it now, 100 years from now, will they look back and say, can you believe that they used to give people that had cancer radiation? They radiated them, or some of the things we do now. We're so smart, but we're really not.
No.
But because you build.
They did the best they could with what they had.
Dr. Brigham was an amazing man.
Yeah. And they really, I think, behind, yes, it was torturous, but at that time, it wasn't. It was what they were trying to do to help. And unfortunately, I think that leads to a lot of the hauntings that go on in these old asylums, that the methods that they used at the time were not a breeze. We can go into the dentist today and have a root canal and not feel any pain at all. But imagine what it would have been like in the 1800s. So, it was just the best they could do at the time, in a lot of ways. So was there a book that gave you the most trouble? Absolutely. Was there a book that gave you the most trouble to write? Murder
of a Herkimer County teacher.
Yeah.
Only because Gene Giannini, it was sad because he was 16 years old and he killed his teacher in Poland, New York, Lita Beecher, who was only like 21 years old at the time. And you read back now, they called him during the trial, they used phrases like moron, imbecile, things like that, which were appropriate at the time. But you look back now, and in our day and age, Gene, that would never happen because he basically had autism spectrum disorder. Mm-hmm. So he was a high-functioning autistic young man who just, he didn't even have a really good reason to kill her, but that's the typical, emotions are difficult to handle for a child with autism.
It's funny. I'm glad we're having this conversation because a lot of people don't realize that these illnesses or these afflictions, whatever you want to call them, were going on hundreds of years ago. They just didn't know that they were going on. They didn't know what they were. Women, Todd makes fun of me all the time when I say this, but, women who had PMS were thrown in the lunatic asylum because they had mood swings.
Yes, it's true.
It's true. So he's got it down on his calendar. He wants to throw me in the lunatic asylum once a month.
I don't even have to have it on my calendar. I just know. Dennis, when you were talking about that book and that instance, I got a sense from you that it kind of touched you deeply, and being an empath, hearing you talk about it, it affected me quite a bit. Hearing that story, do you have empath abilities? I know you say you don't have any abilities, but I kind of question that, to be honest with you.
I guess maybe, I don't know. I never thought about it.
I think it's highly possible, Dennis.
Because his interest in this and getting the story out there and telling the true story reminds me very much of somebody who has that empath ability
and a passion for it.
Yes,
and a passion for it, and a calming. When we investigate, it's very calming with Dennis, and that's something I really appreciate so much, because as someone who's just sort of starting to learn her path in all of this, it's calming to know that there's somebody I can turn to. We've stopped each other in the middle of investigations before and sort of conferred with each other on things. And that's been a very calming thing for me, because I know if I have a question, I can go to Dennis, or Dennis will come to me and say, here's what happened. What do you think about this? And so it's a really great, I think that he might be onto something, Dennis. You may have some sort of empathic ability. I agree. Totally. So you're very special, Dennis.
I've been told that all my life. I'm special, all right.
Let's talk about his haunted house. Can we please? Yes.
Yeah. Tell us the history of the house.
Yeah, the home I live in Prospect, New York. I don't mind telling the viewers where this is, because it's a very well-known home locally here. It's a limestone-built house, 1839. It was built by a Welsh stonemason by the name of Jones, who, how weird is this, I may be related to.
Crazy.
My great-grandparents lived in Prospect. They came here from Wales. But beautiful home. A congressman was born in here, Alexander Perney. And the person I bought it from had told me that her son and daughter saw entities in here all the time, like a good feeling. Like the way this lady explained it to me, says, gee, we were never scared. It was always like a warming comfort haunting, because her kids were never scared. And I live here all by myself. So I've had, before Sandy and I and Dave investigated, I had several instances here of seeing the woman in the room, hearing voices, footsteps all the time. I know there's a curious, playful one here, because my glasses, a couple times, I put them on the kitchen counter. I come upstairs, I come down, they're gone. I find them out in the living room on the floor. Now, I live here alone.
It's called old age, Dennis. Where did I put my glasses?
Yeah.
That's the first thing you think of. I know, right? No, but it is. It's the first thing you think of. And didn't you say you had nails showing up in the house?
Yeah, that was weird. It came and went for no reason. Sandy could tell you, I'm not that I'm OCD, but I'm a very clean type person. I vacuum all the time. This house is neat and clean.
Yep.
I walk through and I find a nail on the floor downstairs, and I found them upstairs, just random finishing nails. And I kept putting them in a drawer. And after about 5 or 6, I'm like, what is going on? They're not falling out of anything. They're just appearing.
My feeling is that the man who built the house, I think you are connected, and I think that's his way of letting you know that he's here. That's what I feel.
I'm glad that they were finishing nails, because I'm envisioning somebody like biting their nails and spitting them on the floor. I'm like, who would do that?
It's so weird. I mean, I buy this house without even realizing it. Probably was built by my great-grandfather, and then it's haunted, and I'm a ghost investigator. I mean, it's just really weird.
I told you it's meant to be.
I hate him. Right now, I hate this man.
And there's nothing malicious in this house. It's all a feeling of love and calmness and positivity in this house. I mean, he's got happy haunts. Dennis has happy haunts.
No, I love it. This is really weird, Todd, but I did say this to Sandy. What do you want? I'm an odd guy and I'm an investigator. I said to her, I really want to live in this house and have my ghost spirit stay here. I'm that comfortable and in love with this home that I want to be here forever.
Well, it was meant to be.
Listen, Sandy and I can do what we can to make that happen, but we can't make any promises.
We can do our best. So, but it was the investigation itself was very, very interesting and compelling. Now, I had a few, maybe a week or so, Dennis, I think it was, beforehand, I had kept getting these visions, these pictures in my mind of a woman on the staircase. Now, I told Dennis specifically, do not tell me anything about this house. I can know when it was built, but that's it. And I kept getting this picture of this staircase and this woman on the staircase. Little heavy set, older woman, hair up in a bun, period clothing, maybe the 1850s, 1860s, and she would just be on the staircase. So I said to Dennis one day, Dennis, I didn't tell him a lot. I said, when you get home tonight from work, can you send me a picture of your staircase? So he sent it to me right away because he had a picture of it. And I said, you know what? That looks almost exactly like what I pictured. So I had this idea in my head of something was going on in that staircase. So I didn't say anything more to him. And then he told me that a lot of activity has been centered around that staircase. And so we got a lot of activity on that staircase. And what I think is this woman was more like a matriarch of the family. And when I walk up those stairs, you can definitely feel her energy there. I think she primarily stays on those stairs, but I feel like she would be someone who would run throughout the house and make sure that everything was in order and everything was in place. And she was sort of like she ran the household back then. And so she's one of the many that I think are in that house, without a doubt. And the name Mary had come to me as well a couple of nights before, just came into my head, and I'm learning how to just listen to myself and not doubt myself. So I mentioned it to Dennis, and the entire house has activity. It's just crazy. Just crazy. Now this, we set up, Dennis, tell us about this. You set up cameras throughout the house.
Right. This was actually a 4K GoPro on a tripod. Just shooting up the stairs. I apologize. My illuminator was acting weird. So that's what those dots are. That's not paranormal. That's part of the night vision camera that I got to fix. But the previous owners had told me many times their children would see an entity walking across the top of the landing upstairs. And when this entity that we captured walking across the top of the landing, Sandy can confirm that we were in my bedroom doing an EVP session, and I had a viewpoint out the door. And right when I said, I just saw something moving out there, was when it was captured on the video.
This is fascinating.
It is. And one of the things that really caught my eye, and I brought it up to Sandy, is if you look up the staircase, and I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to make sure I've got the right viewpoint here. Does the staircase then wind to the right as you go upstairs?
Nope, it's just the second floor. There's a landing, and straight ahead is a bathroom. To the left is the office that I'm sitting in right now, and to the right is the bedroom. So it does circle around and come over, but it doesn't go up anymore.
But you can see the banister on the right-hand side on that second floor there, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because what I saw really closely when I was watching this was light play, because I zoomed in on it. And it's a little grainy, but I was able to get close up on that area. And that's really where I saw a lot of light play and the shadows really bouncing off that banister quite a bit.
Yeah, it looks like, if you look closely, I think this is the one I'm thinking of. You can see sort of it's moving from the left. It's coming in from the left. And then you can see some movement on the right as well. And I'm not sure if this clip has the light anomaly that just sort of flashed, but there was also a light anomaly that flashed at one point as well.
So how do you feel? Okay, obviously you said house is very warm, it's nice, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you feel when you see evidence that basically kind of proves it to you that you've got some activity in your house? And there's other stuff that happened that night too.
Yeah, it was great to have our team in here doing the investigation, because then I'm thinking, okay, it's not just me, it's others experiencing it as well.
And Dennis, talk about the spirit box.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
We totally ripped that off from our friends from the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, who ripped it off from Kindred Spirits.
Yep.
And, hey, we all pay. Flattery. We borrow from each other.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But for the first time, I put these headphones on and plugged into the spirit box, because it can get rather grating and annoying. So I could not hear Dave and Sandy in my living room downstairs talking. I would just, when I would hear what sounded like not the usual type of phrasing, if it stood out, I would just say it out loud. And after they said that it corresponded with questions that they were asking.
It was crazy. And I think it's now become one of my favorite tools for investigating, because I've always been sort of so on the spirit box. There are times you can go in, and I think, Dennis, you might agree with me, it all comes down a lot to chemistry as well. But there are times you can go into an investigation and use the spirit box and literally get nothing. And there are other times when you're right on. And this was one of those times. And for Dennis, being able to isolate the sounds that he was hearing away from all of his other senses, he was literally just using his hearing sense, made such a difference. And Dave and I could ask questions and he would say answers that, Todd, did I send you this? I may have to put this in the audio version did I send you that to you? Do you have it?
I don't have it. No.
All right, I'm going to add this to the audio version of our podcast, but we would ask questions and Dennis would give us very intelligent answers that made complete sense with the questions that we were asking. And that's when the name Mary came out. And we asked some questions, did you die in this house? And she answered, I asked, did you die of typhoid? And she said yes. Which typhoid at that time was raging in New York State. It came over from Europe into New York City. But of course, people didn't stay in New York City. They came up north into New York State. I know Syracuse was a hotbed. The Welsh immigrants came up into Dennis's area and Prospect. So it was raging during that time period. So that would have made perfect sense. Lots of other great answers. It's become one of my favorite tools for investigating. Can't wait to try it again. We're going to make Dave put on the headphones next time and see what Dave comes up with. This should be good. So overall, a very, very unique, beautiful, extremely haunted house. And if anybody is going to be in that house, Dennis, I'm so glad it's you, because you have this understanding and this passion for the spirits and understanding them. And so I think it was definitely meant to be.
And that respect. I mean, I think that it's one thing that I really feel is important if you are investigating is the respect. And if you're living in a home that has activity, as long as it's not bothering you or doing nasty things, like you said, a nasty person in life could be a nasty spirit or ghost or energy. To live in respect of what they experienced while they were there. Their life has to mean something beyond us leaving Earth. There has to be something that remains.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree with that. Respect.
Dennis, what are your thoughts on protection? I know before we investigate, I'll usually do a prayer to St. Michael. And then when we're done investigating, I'll do a prayer to St. Michael, thanking him for his protection.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on staying protected, and what methods of protection are you especially proud of?
Well, that's why I just stepped up and moved over there, because I'm not a practicing Roman Catholic, but I do hit my rosary. This means a lot to me. My daughter bought this for me, and I bring it with me on every investigation. I think having a personal talisman is very important. It doesn't matter whatever philosophy or religion or spiritual viewpoint you have. I do believe in protecting yourself and having something that's comfortable that you feel having with you. I also have a little Monkey King charm that I always carry around with me too, that a friend of mine gave me. So I've got something that's kind of like Buddhist Hindu, and then I got I guess I'm covering all my bases.
yeah, without a doubt.
He's walking along. He's got all the stuff dragging behind him.
But you know what?
Along.
I think it all comes down to intention. Your intention is protection and peace, and keeping yourself in that bubble of protection. I have a black tourmaline necklace that I wear with me. So not only do I do the prayer, but I also carry a crystal that absorbs negative energy as well. And I keep that on my person. So I think the important thing is setting an intention. When I was told one time, I have selenite. I have a selenite square in my studio. And I was told by a Reiki master / psychic medium last fall. She said, build the square in your studio. If something were to follow you home and you stand inside that square, you would not be able to stand in that square. It would repel the negativity that was attached to you. So when I come home from an investigation, usually I'm completely drained and I can't even think. I can't process until the next day. I can't even, but I will stand in that square and my intention will be drain the negativity, any negativity from me. And I think it all comes down to intention. So Dennis, you carry your personal favorite objects and talismans to keep you protected. You know, I don't think there's a set item. If you want a bingo chip and you think that bingo chip will protect you, by all means, bring that bingo chip with you into an investigation.
Before.
It all comes down to your intention.
I think it's important that we bring the spiritual part into it, Todd, with our group. We do a protection or a prayer to begin with, of respect and protection, and then a prayer at the end when we investigate. And we just like that full circle, you know?
And Dennis, it's funny when we were talking about seances and you said how everybody's connected when they hold hands. I feel the same way when we do our prayers, because we all stand in a circle and we all hold hands. And it doesn't matter whose hand you're holding, we're all connected. And I think that makes a huge difference. I think it's the power of one that comes together with positivity. And I think that helps. Positivity always repels the negative, you know? Oh, boy. The phone's ringing.
Wait a minute here. I got one more question for him, too. Let me just answer this. Hello? Uh-huh. Okay, I'll tell her. All right, thanks. Also, for protection, I'm supposed to remind you not to walk in a dark mist ever again.
He's never going to let me forget that. He's never going to let me forget it.
I do have a question regarding possessions. Mm-hmm. And, we're talking about protection and all that kind of stuff. Why is it that a Catholic ceremony is the thing everybody turns to do an exorcism? Like why if the Catholic religion isn't the right way or the only way or whatever, why is it that's always the go-to to take care of possessions? I'm just interested in that. I don't think there's an answer necessarily, but I just wanted to get your take on it.
I think maybe because it's chronicled and it's known and it's familiar, it's dramatic, it's authoritative. That would be my total guess, that, because it's an acknowledgement by a known body, a known religious body, that there's a possession and they have an actual formal procedure to eliminate that. So I think that's the draw. But certainly there's many different applications you can use to try to cleanse or get rid of a spirit. I know we talked, Sandy, about, we've been asked as ghost investigators to go in and clean people's homes. I would never promise anybody that we could do that. You can't promise people. No. You're full of malarkey if you tell people I can come into your home and wave some sage in the air and say, "Hey, ghosts, go away," and then they go.
Yeah.
It may work. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that one method of doing my thought is, my personal belief is that energy will. We all know that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So what you're doing by pushing that energy out, it's going to come back. I very, very, very rarely hear of anybody talking about energy that has been cleared from a home and they never have another problem ever again in their lives. It's very rare. It's possible, but it's very rare. It's
a work in progress. It's like washing your clothes once doesn't keep them clean.
Yes.
You've got to go through the process of intention and cleansing and all that continuously.
And it shouldn't be the be all end all. It should be a tool that's used. It's how you take the necessary steps to work to move that situation out of there. Okay, you can't just wave a magic wand and say, okay, this space is cleansed. Now, I cleanse my studio of negative energy. I try to every week. I sage, I smudge.
Because of me. She's trying to cleanse it because she thinks I'm the negative energy.
He's my negative energy. But I do it every week because energy builds. Energy never completely goes away. So I don't want people to think that that's, if Dennis and Dave and I come to your house and we smudge and we clear and we clean, that's not going to solve all of your problems. Todd and I had a little bit of a case where we had a girl who was having activity in her house, and she was open, and she wasn't doing any of the things that she needed to do to stop the problem or help the problem. So just Todd and some other people going in there wasn't going to solve her problem if she's not going to take those steps herself and take a proactive approach to it. So I don't know. And as far as exorcisms go, Dennis, I was born and raised Roman Catholic as well. Up until a handful of years ago, the Catholic Church wouldn't even acknowledge that they had exorcists. They wouldn't even talk about exorcisms. But over the past, 15 years, they've started to sort of, it's more public knowledge now. I believe each diocese has an exorcist within it now, which is something was never even heard of years ago.
I actually, when I was writing Haunted Adirondacks, I met an exorcist.
Did you?
When I was down and I did a mansion house down in near Lake George.
Mm-hmm.
There was a gentleman there who was a historian, and Dosit, is that the right name? He was this guy that at the museum. Yep. And when I gave him my business card, our ghost card, he started talking about, I'm a practicing exorcist. So I was fascinated. I spent like hours just talking to this guy because I had never met one. I'm like, well, tell me what you do and how do you do it? And it was really he was a nice man, very interesting.
I do believe, and Todd, to your point too, there are exorcists, I guess you could call them, in every religion. Every religion has people who do essentially the same thing. They're just called by different names. And we tend to reach out to our own personal religion representative, but that's something that has always fascinated me, the whole exorcism side. So, Dennis, is there a place that you can point us to if anybody wants to purchase your books, check out your books, any place that they can go to specifically look? I know they're in bookstores everywhere around here.
Amazon.com is a good one, or BarnesandNoble.com in this COVID environment. But hey, I was happy our local Barnes & Noble finally was open. I was in there wandering around looking at books the other day.
I know. And we have some projects coming up. We're going to be doing some investigations over the summer. And you're writing a couple of new books now?
Yeah, I'm currently working on the Potato Hill Road Killer. That's a serial killer from around this area. Pretty gruesome. I mean, I'm going through the case file from the police department and the county DA, and it's unreal.
Yeah. And we're heading up there at some point this summer to see if I can get any feelings and impressions. We're going to check for some EVPs and stuff.
And the current book I'm writing, I'm starting to work on Haunted Central New York, and Sandy's going to be involved with that because what I want her to do is each location within the book, I would like her to have a little portion that the mediums take on it or the psychics take on it. So we write about the place and like I normally do, but then a nice little section there that'll be just Sandy, her thoughts and feelings on it from her medium perspective.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you asked me to do that.
I would
really
like you to refer to her as Cassandra the medium, however, because
medium Cassandra.
That's right.
Cassandra, huh?
Yeah, okay. It's Cassandra. So
take 15 minutes. She'll tell you the whole story about how she was named Cassandra.
Oh boy. Well, Dennis, Todd and I cannot thank you enough for spending this time with us. This has been great. Is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to leave us with about the paranormal world, your books, anything at all?
I would just say to everybody, live life with an open mind. Embrace the paranormal. Don't be afraid if you run into ghosts, just enjoy your life experiences one step at a time.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I agree totally. Thank you. Dennis Webster. You can get his books on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble, and check all of your local shops because that's where I got most of mine. Old Forge, the hardware store in Old Forge, and most of the Oneida County Historical Society has some. So just check them all out.
Excellent. Hey, Dennis, we're going to put you in the back of the studio for a minute. You stick around, okay?
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank
Dennis
you,
Webster.
Oh, that was amazing.
Wasn't that great? I love Dennis.
I'm going to tell you right now. I think he's got some abilities that he just maybe doesn't recognize.
No, I've always thought about that.
You know, to be that passionate about what you're writing about and to care that much about it, I think there's some abilities there.
And you have to see him in Investigation, Todd. He truly is like the comic.
Okay,
and the two of us work really well together to kind of interact.
Where's the invite? Where's the invite? I've got equipment.
Come on. I told you, what did I tell you this morning? I said, get your butt out here and we'll do some great investigating. We have so many. This area is so rich in history and paranormal activity. It's craziness. So get your butt out here.
The ghosts will love the beard. I'm telling you right now, they are drawn to that stuff.
They will.
Well, have a good Sunday fun day yourself. And
Sunday fun day.
Tuesday, Tarot Tuesday, Victoria will be joining us for some tarot fun.
Yes.
And then Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday. I'm not sure what we're doing. Are we playing Match Game again this week, or are we going to do a different game?
No, we'll play Match Game again.
I love Match Game.
Yeah,
so get ready, everybody. Get your pens and paper ready to go for Thursday, Thirsty Thursday. We've got some other stuff going on. We have a special guest on Thursday, don't we?
My cousin Tammy, who was very close with me when we were younger, has had many experiences in her life. And she's excited to share them and drink with us. So
yeah, she says the stories get even better as you're drinking. So this should be great. I can't wait. So big week coming up, and season 2, episode 1 drops next Sunday of the Sandy and Toddcast. So be looking for that as well. Thank you.
Speaking of Tammy, look who's hanging out.
Hi, Tammy.
We'll be here with her on Thursday. Have a great Sunday, everybody.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.